welcome Harriet, Darren, and Jessica. I'm so excited to have you on today. We're going to have a lot of fun. As Nanji mentioned, feel free to drop in questions in the Q&A session, in the Q&A section on Zoom, as well as in the chat, and we'll try to pull as many as we can throughout the rest of the session. So as we get started, I would love for each one to go around and introduce yourself, maybe quickly, who you are, what you do, and then what maybe your business is most known for. Maybe if there's a specialty that you guys really like doing or are well known for. And then one fun fact about yourself that most people may not know. So let's get creative. I just threw this on you. So whatever comes to the top of your head, and we'll start with Harriet.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Alfajiri, my fellow Kenyans and Tanzanians in the room. Thank you so much, Benji, for having us. And I'm really excited for this conversation. My name is Harriet Kiruki. I'm the co-founder of AfriJob, which is a human capital startup based off here in Nairobi, Kenya, where we build top teams for fast-growing companies in Africa. And our specialty is really fast-growing organizations that need to senior level talent to scale across different parts of the continent. And that's what we really focus on, getting your team, building satellite offices across the continent, ensuring that if you're South African, you have access to Kenyan markets. If you're Kenyan, you have access to Nigerian markets. So that's really what our emphasis is. Fun fact about myself, I am a cultural enthusiast. So I speak several languages, including Japanese, Korean, and a little bit of Chinese. So that's my fun fact.
Wow. That is super cool. We'll have to test the Japanese at some point, maybe later today. We'll see. Darren, we'll go off to you, then we'll go to Jessica after. Darren, Karibu.
Cool, thank you, Karibu. Thank you so much for having me on, by the way, Benjamin. I really appreciate you inviting me to this panel. So hi, everyone. My name is Darren Franks. I'm a Brit, as you can probably hear, but it's been a long time since the UK has been home. I've spent the last 7 years here in South Africa. Before that, I was in Dubai for 6-7 years as well. My primary business is talent in the cloud. We specialize in leadership talent, specifically in the fintech space. So our clients are Pan-African. I think it is 17 countries in Africa we've put leaders into. We're probably best known actually for the diversity and inclusion, the gender diversity side of our business. 2019, 43% of the leaders we placed in Africa were women, which we're hugely proud of. And we also do work across Europe, Middle East, and starting to do some work in South America as well. Interesting fact about me. Well, I used to be a chef. Not many people know that. I mean, my team know that, but I used to be a chef. So when I left school, I went straight into the kitchens and worked in a very nice hotel in London and did that for nearly 2 years. And that was probably the hardest I've ever worked in my entire life. So yeah, that's a fact about me.
So for everybody who's tuned in today, we've got the special. Darren will be sending you a personalized home-cooked meal. So feel free to throw in the chat what type of meal you want, and it's going to be coming straight to you. We'll also be publishing his email, so you can follow up with him and just annoy him until he delivers them.
It doesn't include postage and packaging, by the way. So and there's a few people here from sort of India and various other places. You'd have to pay for the postage and packaging, but I'll send you a mail.
Cool, thanks, Darren. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you, Benji. So like Benji, I am a Goan. So we have Portuguese roots in our origin. Born and bred in Nairobi, Kenya, 4th generation on my mom's side, 1st on my dad's. I grew up in Kenya and I have a background in computer science, but over the last 15 years, I've really diversified from being an ecosystem builder. So management consultant for the first 3 years after university. I studied locally, computer science, and then was part of the first tech hub in Nairobi, which is the iHub, which most of you know. My career there kind of traversed from like partnerships to a lot of community building. And when I was exiting the iHub, I realized I was very passionate about building teams and talent. So I never thought I'd actually start an HR tech company. And I started Brave at the end of 2015 with 2 of my other co-founders, both of whom are in the UK at the moment. And Brave is known for tech and product recruiting, mainly from mid senior level all the way to C-level. However, we are in the process of building a workforce planning product, which is globally focused at the moment. So one thing that people probably know or don't know about me is that I'm actually a musician. You can see my guitar in the background. Actually in the process of doing an EP this year. So if you don't see me behind the computer screen, you will see me on stage or probably playing music somewhere. Yeah.
I love it. We got the whole party here. We've got musicians, we've got linguistics going on, and we've got the chef making all the right food. Awesome. Cool. So let's jump straight in. Harriet, would love to ask you, you probably see quite a bit of inbound. You probably all of you probably spend a lot of time with different founders across the continent. What have you seen have been patterns that you've been noticing, at least in the past year, of being like the highest things in requests that founders are looking for some of the people they're looking to bring onto their teams?
Thank you so much for that question. One of the things that has been interesting, we have 100 company partners, speaking to hundreds more, and across the board, these are companies, as I mentioned, that are looking into scaling, whether that's geographically or scaling across different products and services that they're invested in or that they're building. And one of the things that has constantly popped out when it comes to the scaling strategy is having teams that have a culture fit. And that is coming over and over again because you're hiring for senior engineers, you're hiring for country managers, you're hiring for different mid to senior level talent. And they constantly ask us to find people who can get their hands dirty, who buy into the vision of the organization, who will be willing to work those odd hours and grow the company. So I would really say one of the interesting trajectory we've been seeing and commonly asked type of talent is that culturally fit talent. And that's why it's becoming interesting because most of the organizations that we're working with, either early stage part of their building companies or even late stage in terms of the building of the organizations, they are also trying to attract investors. So you find them coming up with investor decks, coming up with reports on how they're attracting their partners and different type of organizations that they work with. But that type of energy that is spent getting investors, we're not seeing the same being spent attracting talent, top talent. So even when organizations are saying that they want culturally fit product engineers or CTOs, there's also that missing piece, which is also organizations' insight in terms of what culture do I have that attracts different talent. That being said, the type of interesting roles that we've constantly heard of, especially within the technical side, is your product managers. That's where a lot globally as well as regionally, it's been hard to find product managers, especially on the product side. And then on the non-product side, mostly the operational side, that's why we are finding a lot of financial needs. So your CFOs, when companies are recruiting for investors or fundraising, we're also finding a lot of needs for customer success managers, especially when it comes to retaining customers, because then acquiring customers is hard, but retaining is the other hardest part. So I would say first and foremost, culture fit of talent across either engineering or non-engineering type of teams. And the second one is this, especially on the product side, the product managers to manage different type of teams under the product, as well as the non-product side, your financial people, and this funnel when it comes to the customer side of the business, especially salespeople and customer success managers.
Thanks, Harriet. Jessica, you've seen this evolve as well over time, and I'm sure during your time at iHub, you saw the types of jobs people are looking for might have evolved from what they are looking for today, right? Or maybe they might be the same, who knows? I would love to hear your perspective on this one. As people are trying to hire, do you think there are pieces that, or how about, let me rephrase it this way. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges maybe founders who don't use a recruiting agency or firm like you guys are doing? Are they things that, maybe founders might go make a quick hire and then have to let that person go? What are some of the patterns you've been noticing with the mistakes founders have been making?
I wouldn't say they are mistakes per se. I feel like the founders actually more experienced in actually like hiring their first team, their first round of tech teams now in like the last 5 years compared to the initial first years and that's a trend like in Nairobi from what I've seen. And why I say this, because, for example, if you're a non-tech founder, it will be very hard for you to evaluate the skills of a tech founder. So you find what founders like this do is they outsource a lot of their tech either to the local devs, which sometimes they charge them like 10x of what's charged either like in places like the Ukraine or Russia or like Eastern Europe per se. And those second time or third time founders that actually build in teams actually have an idea of what the initial team should look like. It should look like a senior engineer who actually knows how to like have a system architecture in place and a product roadmap and actually come up with an MVP for alpha testing and alpha trials. And then eventually when it's actually at scale, then you know what kind of hires you need to make. So what we've seen is like, I've seen like second time hires, second time founders like Aston Kimani from Africa Stocking, Grant Brook, who has a non-tech background as well, just hiring from their referral network. So they actually they're using their network to actually hire the first teams to get the best of the best. So they've been a couple of learnings over time. Obviously, there's those founders that will totally outsource, and there's those founders that will actually hire only purely based from their recruiting referral network. And then there are those founders who will actually take the risk of actually using recruiting agency. And the problem that we see with this is when you're at that initial stage and you've not actually raised enough money and you're bootstrapping and maybe you just got a pre-seed round, enough runway for the 12 months, you don't have recruiting budget. So that starts to become a challenge when you're actually using a recruiting agency that's actually has a high, either using contingency or it depends based on milestone. How they charge is that they can't afford the recruiting agency. So you go back to square one again. It's like the chicken egg situation, is that you either go and use your network. And from my experience, we actually as Brave advise founders that are at really early stages to use their referral network and to use like the CTO networks and the engineering networks to actually make their first time hires. A recruiting agency might not be the best. However, if you're at scale and you're looking for like C-level talent, that's when people like Darren and I actually can make a big difference and actually find you the right people to join your company.
Thanks, Jessica. Darren,
you seem to have a couple of your thinking.
No, because you know, because I talk to many founders and you know, probably the people I spend the most time with apart from my team are other tech founders across the continent, and I hear these, and this is hiring is a big topic that we all talk about. Like, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had a bunch of Y Combinator Africa founders. We met up for a week and we worked together for a week, and every evening, every conversation in the evening was always about hiring. About talent, about, you know, discussions about it. So it is that important. Some of those people, some of those founders are actually here on the call today. So it's exciting to see as well, because these are topics that, you know, a lot of us have learned from, like good and things that, you know, maybe not the word mistakes on, you know, might not be the right word, but like we've learned from things that we've done previously. Darren, I have a question for you primarily around your background, right? So you spent quite a bit of time in the UK, you were in Dubai, then you came to the continent. Now, the UK compared to the continent, I would say a lot of these roles might be quote unquote newer for the continent. For example, a UI UX designer across the continent maybe hasn't been a role that's been existing for over 10, 15 years now, versus in the UK, that might have been a role since 2007 when the iPhone and everything was starting to grow and come up, right? And what do you think is the opportunity there? Like, people talk about this gap, okay, like, you know, that maybe if somebody's a super talented UI UX designer in their field or in their city, If you take an average person, let's say, and this is an argument that I've heard somebody saying, so I want to hear your perspective on this, given that you've lived in some of these areas. Somebody said like, okay, well, somebody maybe in Europe has been doing this for maybe 10 years or whatever, might have more experience or might be more exposed or might have a community of people that they could learn from, she or he could learn from as well. So what's your take on this with Africa? Is there an opportunity for Africa? Is talent opportunity for Africa to close that gap? Is there still a need within like the differences within this, or is that a complete myth? What's your take on this?
Parts of me wants to say it's a complete myth. And I think there's a lot of talk about a skill shortage and lack of talent. Honestly, I mean, I don't know what Jessica and Harriet's views are, but my view is that's absolute rubbish. There's no shortage of talent. The problem is majority of founders and majority of companies just don't know how to find people, right? And that's where we come in. You know, if it was easy, then Harriet, myself, and Jessica wouldn't have a job. You know, we wouldn't have businesses. You know, there is amazing talent across the continent, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, in all the years I've been working on the continent, that's like 8 years now. Was I've been living here sort of 6 or 7, but I've been working on the continent, you know, 7 or 8 years. I've never imported talent. I've never brought someone in from overseas, ever, because there's talent here, right? The problem is people don't know how to find it. And when they do find talent, how do you engage with that talent? How do you retain that talent? So there's lots of other challenges. So I think it's a bit of a myth. I think when you're talking specifically around UI, UX and product, because I know Harriet mentioned that, the one thing that drives me insane, and I'm sorry if I'm going to offend any founders on this call, is the amount of conversations I have with founders, whether they be early stage or pre-seed, or whether they be, you know, even at sort of, you know, the Series A, you know, go and find me the head of product from Revolut. Go and find me the head of product from Monzo. Go and find me the head of product from N26. Go and find me the head of product from Starling Bank. Guys, we don't need that in Africa. You know, Africa has got its own market, it's got its own challenges, it's got its own uniqueness. Don't go and copy Revolut. Yeah, Revolut's got a great model. They've got a great app. I love the app, absolutely love it. Hate the customer service, love the app. But, you know, the amount of funding Revolut, N26, you know, Monzo have just announced another round, right? We're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't get that, by and large, you don't get that here in Africa, right? You look at Kuda Bank in Nigeria, right? They've raised $10 million, and have made a big impact with that, and an amazing, you know, UI and UX on their platform. So you don't need that. And I will always challenge someone going, that's just nonsense. So to answer your question directly, there's talent here. It's a case of, how do you find that talent, and how do you make your and maybe we'll come on to this, Benjamin, in a bit, but you know, the world of work and the world of recruiting has changed. It's no longer just a case of having some nice beanbags, a foosball table and a PlayStation, some free coffee, right? Because people aren't in the office anymore. So you've got to be more creative with your value proposition, but maybe we can touch on that a bit later.
Well, now it's Darren sending them home cooked meals, right? Like delivering them and just making them pay for postage,
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Harriet, so I want to talk about the opposite of what you just talked about. So we were talking about like talent across the continent, outside of the continent. Harriet, in Nairobi specifically, right? Last year, Nairobi had about 304 venture deals done. Second highest in Africa after Nigeria. I think Nigeria is 309, Nairobi was 304. Means a booming like tech economy is growing there very massively and fast. Therefore, the request for talent is also increasing in the region. I was talking to a few Nairobi-based founders, and these are verbatim things that I've heard them say. Oh, we had this amazing engineer, and then Microsoft came in, and then Google came in, and then, you know, X company came in. I hear this across Nairobi as well as Lagos, and Facebook came in and paid them premiums, and then we couldn't afford to pay them, and they're gone. Do you have any perspective on that? And what advice do you have for founders who are on this call as well, who are facing this issue right now? What should they do?
Thank you for that question. We have received a lot of that, especially with our own company partners who really talk about just like the threat of the top talent being taken by, you know, competitors in the market. And if we dig very much in, you know, thinking about Microsoft and Facebook and all these competitors when it comes to the ecosystem, most of the time they really have a strong value proposition. What really Darren was talking about in terms of employer value proposition. You know, for a fact, you come into this organization, you're getting a very good incentive and a good deal And that is also going to be a great marker in your resume that you worked in this organization and set you up for life. And that is, that's a great value proposition that they have for employees or potential hires. That being said, I think one of the things that founders need to really understand is that the culture you're really building within your organization is your product, and the people who consume it are your employees. So whether that's when it comes to attracting talent, whether that comes to recruiting talent, as well as retaining talent. So I think this is one of the opportunities that founders have, which is really, because think about it, and I mentioned this when I was introducing, when I said that we do an amazing job when it comes to raising money, hence the number of deals we're getting. We're able to show our investors how our 10-year plan will look like. We're able to show how we're able to retain customers. We have plans that we have for them, right? They get excited about our vision. They want to be part of us as partners in terms of our journey. And the same type of, that's why I talked about the same energy that we invest in our investors, we don't do it in our most important resource, which is human capital. So when you start looking at our internal employee experience, how do we ensure that we're able to leverage that and think about this from impact narrative? Let's start with impact first and foremost. We're able to attract impact investors by showcasing the amount of impact we're able to showcase or achieve through either gender, diversity, and all these different things that we kind of like measure as impact. And nowadays we're seeing, especially within mid to senior level talent, and most of them are top competitive talent, people are looking at work in a meaningful or a purposeful type of direction. They want to be part of an organization that has impact as part of their focal point, because people are coming from working with governments, right? Working with traditional or legacy institutions, and they have seen.
So I'm going to pause, but I'm going to pause you right there, Harriet. I'm going to pause you, respectfully pause you, right? Just because I want to understand this more, because this is a cry that so many founders express, right? And they're like, yes, while we're doing amazing work, while like our work is super impactful, this company comes and pays 3x what I'm paying, right? And then what do I do? Like, and that is a big challenge. Like that, that's something personally I've faced once, it happened to us as well. And so, and while like that employee was like, oh yeah, I love what Nala's up to, blah, 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 I love. And then, they tell me like, look, to be honest, man, like it was a massive increase. I need to support my family. I'm responsible for this. I have to pay the health bills at home. And I can't blame them, right? I just have, all right, cool. Like, so what's your take on that? And Darren and Jessica, you've seen this as well. Like, do you guys have anything you want to add to what Harriet said?
Yeah, I'll chip in if you don't mind, Jessica. I'm quite passionate about this, right? Guys, I'm going to be brutally honest. There is no answer. You can't retain someone for life. People don't have a job for life these days. It's just fact. You're not now competing, whether you're in Tanzania, whether you're in Nairobi, whether you're in Lagos, whether you're in Azerbaijan, it doesn't matter where you are, right? You are now not just competing with your local competitors or your local tech companies, you're competing on a global scale, okay? The amount of, requests we've had for talent from Africa, but now not having to move, right? It's the virtual brain drain. Right. Historically, it was the physical brain drain. If you ever go to London and you walk around one of the famous streets called Harley Street, which is where all the clinics and the private hospitals are, it's full of South Africans. Right? Every doctor you meet is a South African, because there's been this big export of talent. What we're seeing now is actually that's now virtual. So Company A, I'm not going to mention any names, but Company A will come and say, actually, we've got a great developer in Cape Town who's earning, let's call it 50,000 rand, or let's call it $50,000, right? Well, they'll come in and say, well, listen, you can stay in Cape Town, but we're going to pay you on our benchmark of your level, and it's $80,000 because that's what we pay for our developers. That's the competition, right? So I think the one solution, and I'm probably sure a lot of people may not want to hear this, but you need to build a talent pool. You need to have a talent pipeline. Unless you have a talent pipeline, you're constantly chasing your tail. You need to have, as if you were running your marketing campaigns, right? So you run your marketing in your drip campaigns to people that have come on maybe to your app or to your website, and you want to nurture them over a period of time. That's how you have to do recruitment, right? You have to nurture people over a period of time. And if you've got a lot of people in your funnel who you can qualify in and out at various different stages, when you do get attrition, because attrition is a fact of business, it happens, right? It happens to every single company out there. Whether you're, two people building, a tech startup, or you're Microsoft or Google, You know, how many times do you go onto LinkedIn? You see people saying ex-Google. I don't know why people do that. It drives me mad. But anyway, so I don't care if you're ex-Google. Why are you telling me who you used to work for? I know who you work for. Anyway, I'm going to get on my soapbox in a minute. You're going to have to stop me. So that is a harsh reality. You have to build talent pipelines, right? And again, I can't talk for Harriet or Jessica, but you know, certainly some of the work we do with clients is educating them on and training them on how to do that themselves, because once you do that, you have effectively talent on demand. Obviously, it's not as simple as that, but you know, there is no easy answer to retention. And don't start throwing equity at people like it's sweets in a candy shop. It's a bad idea. Bad idea.
Yeah. I have my 2 cents too as well. I do agree with Darren, and Darren, I love your candidness, kind of very much in my direction. Is you can't throw culture and you can't throw equity at talent. They're going to leave you whether you like it or not. We've heard companies locally that have actually nurtured interns until like 3-4 years, and then they leave. They will leave. Talent is going to leave you, and you have to know what to do in order to actually like fill that gap. Are you actually going to talent pipeline is one way of doing that, but another way of doing that is actually building your team in-house. Is that growth? You give other people duties. Like it's not one person is stuck doing the data engineering, but like you have 2 data engineers. So if one person leaves, that you're not stuck, oh my god, my entire data engineering skill set has left, now I don't know what to do. And if they want to leave, let them leave. Don't force them to stay for any reason, because you're holding back. They'll always be that grudge of like, did I make the right decision behind the talent's mind? So you never actually get the best out of them. So get fresh talent in, but also make sure there's institutional knowledge in the company. It's very, very important. Yeah.
Harry,
I would like to say one more thing about that.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think one of the things that really resonates across the board is just that journey, right? So someone is coming in, and going back to that scenario that we raised, if you showcase your company as a feeder school or a feeder organization to companies like Microsoft, you're able to nurture talent, or you're able to really attract talent. So it's also leveraging what you're seeing as an employee, or just a kind of like more than experience, like the employee journey. So what ends up happening for every person who becomes a senior engineer? What is that employee journey? And can you use that journey to now build upon your pipeline? So still, it just orients to how you're able to tell your narrative and then build talent pipelines around the same.
Harriet, a large portion of our audience who are listening in today are diaspora, are people who care about the continent. That's why they're here listening. And these are also people who are looking at ways to move back home. Also, you know, another segment of our audience tuning in today are people who work at full-time organizations, let's say a corporate job, let's say a KPMG in Nairobi, and are looking to potentially transition out. Moving to a startup involves risk. It involves potential failure of the company. And the big question that we always get asked is, okay, how do I leave like a KPMG or a PwC to go and work at the startup? And then I go tell my mom, like, you're leaving like KPMG to go work at like this startup, which has a name of a fruit. Like, what are you talking about? So when you guys are recruiting and you meet people like this, what advice and thoughts do you have for them, or to ease that transition for people who might be in this position or considering jumping into the startup world?
That's true in terms of like that shift of mindset. But first and foremost, if you're really thinking about that, you know, you're a different type of person, different type of breed, you know, not a Wall Street type of person who wants to stick there. So that's already like a good direction. And we have had most of our in the beginning of our journey, actually, we focused on diaspora talent moving into the continent when it comes to startups. And a great time that we spent was nurturing this talent to really understand the incentives. And most of the time, we would also want to understand their salary expectations. So what you talked about in terms of payments becomes such an important thing, because there isn't knowledge about how much they expect to be paid as an engineer relative to the market prices in Lagos or in South Africa or somewhere else in the continent. So that's something that we've seen as a very missing part of their journey, is knowledge about just expectations, which is very important for you to just know the expectations so that you can break the ice first and foremost. So then right after that, once you break the ice about the expectations, then the next thing is now to really get them to understand the pros and the cons of working within organizations. You identify the cons, which is really, as you're talking about in terms of the risk, but then the pros that we have observed, and this is especially something that founders in the ecosystem leverage, is that growth. And everyone is talking about in terms of organizational growth and the amount of responsibilities that you're delegated. And you know, especially within organizations, it's very hard to come up with a job description for a startup because you do everything, which really means that you get to come into an organization, especially for some of this talent that is focused on professional growth and professional development. You're able to come in and lead the, maybe for instance, coming in as, maybe you're supposed to come in as growth and you're already building all these teams across East Africa. You know, you're supposed, maybe in, you know, you're focused in 3 markets already, where we've seen a company hiring for someone to head growth across East African region. So that really talks about the responsibilities that you handed over are very much intense. So the growth is very exponential in terms of the responsibility. So that's always something that we always focus on when it comes to what is your growth plan? What are you looking into acquiring as skills? And how can we ensure that you're able to, you know, get this type of skills or align on this type of angle when it comes to the company that you match with? The risks are there. The company can fail. And we've seen a lot of our companies failing during COVID. So that's really happens. So when it comes to that, then it's really understanding that at the end of the day, it's also experiences. And when you talk to even founders who are, they're founding another company for the third or the second time, they talk about failure. So it's a combination of that experience as well as setting the expectations when it comes to understanding of the data around the salary insects and other aspects of the countries that they're looking into moving into.
And I think that's an important point, because the salary expectations piece is really like, I spend quite a bit of time on Clubhouse, and I listen to all these conversations that go on, and people are always like, yeah, I want to move back to Kenya, but I'm not trying to be broke. I'm like, wow, but these are honest, genuine conversations you hear going on, right? My earning potential in the UK or wherever they are based right now, like they say, on average, I earn much higher. Darren, as somebody like you, right? You've seen multiple different ranges of salaries across the continent with maybe the different people you've placed. What's your take on this? And then the second piece I have for that, just like a sub-segment, is as you've seen these companies grow across the region, right? And let's say somebody might have a CFO in Ghana, a CFO in South Africa. What is your thoughts on pay scales in Africa? Do they make sense? Should they make sense at all? Should they only make sense per country? Should they make sense only per company? As you know, it's such a sensitive topic for people to talk about, but just want to hear your perspective on this, given your experience.
Okay, so answer your first question, which is it's relative. Okay, so you will earn a lot more in Europe and you will earn a lot more in Dubai than you will in Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, right? But the cost of living is equally as high, right? So what I would always say to someone is look at the disposable income that you have at the end of the month, right? Work on disposable income, because that's what really your salary is. Okay, so you cover your living costs and your expenditure, schooling or whatever it may be. What's your disposable income as a percentage? That you can then use as a bit more of a data point, okay, and to make a decision on. So if you're earning £200,000 in the UK, you're not going to earn £200,000 in Kenya, right? Albeit Nairobi is ridiculously expensive, but anyway, that's a conversation for another day. If you're looking at South Africa, when I first came to South Africa, the majority of, or a large proportion of the companies I was dealing with were actually providing services to US and UK businesses, right? What's happened over the last 5-6 years is inflation has just done that. And now it's no more cost effective for a UK company to hire someone in South Africa. There's very little cost benefits, right? So there isn't necessarily the cost, which is driving, I think, the mobility side. It's more about access to talent and skill. So in terms of salaries across Africa, they're so varied. They are, I don't think there is this is the salary for a CFO in Africa. And I hate that, by the way. I hate people who say, we're moving to Africa. Okay, would you like to be a little bit more specific? Anyway, that's another thing that gets my goat. Clearly, everyone, things annoy me a lot in life. I've been around for a long time, and things really get to me, and that's one of them. But I think should there be a fair pay scale? Yeah, I mean, look, there are Pan-African fintechs, and they're not necessarily going to have a CFO in every country. There's no need to, right? You might have a finance person, manager, accounts payable person, accountant in each country. Yeah, it makes sense, but you wouldn't have a CFO in every country. That doesn't really make sense to me. So I think there is an imbalance. I don't think there is any real data that you can say this is the CFO, this is the salary for a CFO in Ghana versus Tanzania versus South Africa. Each sector is different depending on experience. If you're looking for a CFO that's been through a listing, they're going to be a lot more expensive than someone that's been a CFO for a 20, 30 person business, right? So it's difficult to answer that question, Benjamin, to be honest.
Jessica, do you have any thoughts on salary scales?
Yeah, over the last couple of months, I have seen a lot of kind of expats coming into, I would say, the continent, and they look at Kenya / Nigeria / South Africa as like areas to work in. So they get in touch, and they always mention this is their original pay scale, and they've already done their research via like Glassdoor or any other platform that gives like salary data, and they are very cognizant that these countries actually have a bit of a differentiation in terms of pay scale. So I think those candidates that actually do the research and are aware are a little easier to deal with. There are some candidates that actually do come in and they're very obnoxious, and they're actually like, it's this or that, right? They're not willing to actually like make a sacrifice on salary or kind of benefits that they do have or did have. And it makes it very hard, because they say they want to, as Darren said, they don't actually specify where they want to work. They say they want to work on the continent, and like without like the proper preparation, it's very hard to actually work with such candidates. You have to like have multiple calls, and it takes multiple efforts, especially at C-level, to actually work with such candidates to actually change their mind. It's a mindset change. So it's like a relationship. You're having calls with them every single week, trying to coach them and things like that. Now, I have a different perspective on salary expectation on the talent when it comes to tech talent. The market has been inflated in the last 5 years, and very openly, I will say this is due to the likes of, for example, IBM research setting up, Microsoft, the gaming lab setting up, Google setting up in Ghana and things like that. And they offer like 3x of what the salary is. So what can I say? It's like a developer coming straight out of university who has got like a year or two of experience is quoting a salary of like a 5-year developer, because like they're kind of inexperienced and they see what others are earning, and they're like, yeah, I want to earn that much. So if the market says X, so there's a bit of a discrepancy and a misalignment on that sector. And I think like if I'm not wrong, I think WorkPay, Paul Kimani and team have actually introduced a survey that's going round, and we need the equivalent of Glassdoor in this part of the world to actually say these are actually the actual salaries or ranges that developers and product and other techies are actually earning. So what we need there, the gap there, is more information and insight, because all we have right now is other Western platforms and what the market is showing in terms of inflation.
Thanks, Jessica. I know we're getting to the end of time. There's also quite a lot of questions for the audience that have come through. Also, Jessica, you mentioned Paul Kimani is also on the call today with us as well. So really cool to see that. So a couple, I'm going to start pulling some questions for the audience, and we're going to pull back just to wrap up as well. So first question we have here is from Tayo. It's about the Continental Free Trade Agreement. Maybe, I'll give this one to whoever wants to answer this, but will it affect talent mobility, sourcing, and the scope of your respective business?
I hope so.
That probably Darren can take that.
Listen, I think it's too early to tell, but I truly hope so. Mobility across the continent is a key thing. We saw what happened in Europe. When the Eurozone came in. I shouldn't really talk about the Eurozone, should I, being a Brit? But anyway, as it was, freedom of talent and freedom of mobility is a huge thing. And if we can get that right, then brilliant. However, given where we are in the world and given the COVID situation, how much is there still going to be the physical mobility, or is there still going to be that virtual mobility? It's too early to tell.
I could
cool.
add something.
Sorry, go on, Harriet.
Yeah, another thing that could be an interesting part of the Continental Free Trade Agreement is now to really, you talked about remote teams, Darren, is to really think about this from also a tax point of view, because one of the biggest challenges I've been having going back to insights is when you have, say, a South African company that is trying to recruit in different markets, there's also that tax engagement or conversation that comes in. So how does that then, how does the Free Continental Trade Agreement also look into policy-wise? Because that also creates incentives for talent to move around.
That's a really good point. And I think the tax incentives is going to be like, how does that affect where people want to work from as well and where they're earning most of their income? I have a question over here. I'm just trying to power through these so we can keep our answers short so we can get through many of them. Andrew Tesha from Tanzania is asking, when you can't afford talent, basically, why not just give equity? Or if you can't give equity and can't afford them, what's the other alternative?
Maybe I can take this one because I've seen it a lot. Equity works and doesn't work in some parts of the continent. People in this part of the world need cash to survive. And the companies die, man. You're telling them they're going to invest in 3 years. What kind of cash are they going to get? And they have to pay rent, they have to pay bills, they need cash upfront. So while equity is a good thing, if you actually have some kind of investment money and have bootstrapped and have some savings, pay them a stipend initially so they can cover their initial costs. And if you want to open up your ESOP at that employee stock options at that point in time, well and good. You keep them locked in for a period of at least 3 years if they decide to stay or breach and leave after like a year and a half, and they really get that much equity. But I'll tell you for free, cash is king in this part of the world.
Seems like it's not just king across talent as well. Sorry, go on, Harriet.
And going back to cash, and what Jessica said is true. I think one of the things that could be an interesting thing that you could look into is also bonus structures. So, really rallying the entire team, not just the salespeople, to have a specific bonus milestones that you're hitting, and that means transparency within your organization. So then are you transparent on the money that you're getting in, and how are you able to just ensure that everyone within the team, whether that's a content person or the accountant, is able to make, be a salesperson even, because they know the targets that they're meeting and there's a commission structure. So I'd really also push for bonuses and having a structure that really ensures that everyone is excited about, selling and retaining customers across the board.
Cool. I've got a question here from Gwera. She's dialing in from Nairobi. She's asking, any advice for somebody coming to work in Africa from the West in terms of building and nurturing culture? I've heard stories of startups starting meetings with a prayer or seeing colleagues signing off emails with Bible verses. It is anecdotal. But what advice would you give to set expectations for somebody coming from Western culture to African startup culture? Who would like to take this one?
I'm not going to answer that directly, because I think each company, you know, has their own way of working. As an expat coming into Africa, the learning curve for me, I mean, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning is working with people across the continent, because a quick anecdotal, someone asked me about 8-9 months ago, you know, what's the difference between fintech in Europe or fintech in the UK and fintech in Africa? And my answer was easy. You know, the people are so much nicer in Africa, and they are genuinely, right? They are just so much nicer to deal with. And that was my honest answer. And I put that on LinkedIn, and I think I upset a few people, but you know, I think you know there is cultural differences. You know, you go to the Middle East, and it's a completely different culture, completely. Same as Africa, and again, I keep saying it, and it's driving me mad. But you know, Nairobi, business in Nairobi is very different from business in the DRC, right, or business in Ghana, or business in Nigeria. So I think, you know, if you're coming from the West and you want to work in Africa, right, in a country in Africa, and you feel that there's going to be a big cultural shift, then maybe you want to start looking at international companies first. Maybe that's the sort of step in. And then once you've understood a bit more about business culture, then perhaps you can go and work for a more local company or a local founded company. I think it can be quite daunting. And I know I mentioned this at the beginning, but you know, I've never brought in expats into Africa. I've never seen the need to. But what I have seen is those expats that have been brought in, you know, they either sink or swim, and the vast majority sink, because culturally it's so different. So it's my view is it's really important, you know, if you are going to come to a new country, wherever that may be on the planet, you need to spend time in really understanding the culture. I'm not talking about you know, just the business culture, but going out and living, and you know, don't go and stay in a 5-star hotel. That's not, you know, we heard the you know, the Twitter founder was coming over to you know, to Africa to live in Africa, and he was living in 5-star hotels and going to exclusive safaris. That's not living in Africa, right? I mean, come on. So you know, anyway, I can talk on for ages. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's pretty funny. I was saying, you know, wait, Jessica and Harriet, do you have your Kenyan bracelets on? No,
Not today.
no, I am disappointed. I am disappointed. That's like the Kenyan billboard that they carry them everywhere.
Election season. It's election.
I'm disappointed a little bit. No, but why I bring that up is because the first time I moved to America, I carried one of these Maasai sticks with me to classes. And one day my professor came to my desk and said, "Why do you always carry this Maasai stick?" And I was trying to think of something fun. I just said something like, "It's for my prayers." And man, this professor never came close to my desk again. Like, he's just like, "Yo, that kid's weird," and just bounced. But there are many cultural differences, and that a few people have talked about those questions. So just to wrap up before I bring in Naji again, what keeps each one of you up at night regarding the work that you are doing? Jessica, Harriet, then Darren.
All right. What keeps me up is with a new product on workforce planning, it's to ensure that like myself, execs at my level, VP are hitting their bottom line. But at the same time, talent is getting placed in projects that they can actually get fulfillment and growth in terms of their skill set, them as a person, and also towards a mission of like building themselves, hence Brave ethos, unleashing the best in people. Yeah.
Harriet?
There's a lot that keeps me up at night, including Kenya, but specifically for me, I think one of the things that maybe this is also something that I'd be keen to hear both of you on the same, but the future of human resource and human capital is human, right? Mm-hmm. And meaning that it's a real service to identify a fit, whether that's from a skill point of view as well as a culture point of view. And this type of human touch, how do you scale it? So what keeps me up at night is scalability. How do you leverage data points that first and foremost are already scarce? You know, the continent is known for having, you know, scarce data points that we can even leverage to be able to even build an ideal model of a CFO for a Kenyan startup that is scaling with this revenue, right? So how do we start really having the right data points within the organization to be able to identify an ideal or a fit when it comes to candidates? Because at the end of the day, for AfriJob, it's all about building top talents for fast-growing companies. So how do you ensure that these companies have the fit that they need culturally to ensure that they grow? And how do you scale that human touch? By building tools that enable us to collect the right type of data so that we're able to really scale our ability to ensure that companies are moving from 1 employee to 10 to 100. And that really means that it's really building data models, being able to identify ideal fit when it comes to matching algorithms and other things, and also scaling just the human touch when it comes to matching humans with other humans. So that's what keeps me up at night.
Love it. Darren.
Well, I think insomnia and sleep deprivation is part of the parcel of being an entrepreneur, right? Because it is. I don't know any entrepreneurs that's certainly at early stages that for sleep. What keeps me up at night? Honestly, now not a lot, because I work really, really hard during the day, and I'm exhausted by the time it comes to bedtime. So I sleep pretty well. And also, I've spent a lot of time over the last 3-4 years building a really, really strong team, a really strong leadership team in my business. So the big acid test, I think, for any entrepreneur really is, could they jump on a plane, go away for 2 months and come back to a business? Would the business still be there if they weren't there? That for me is a really good sign of a business that is sustainable. Because if you're in that business, the business isn't working for you, you're working for the business. And listen, everyone's got different ideas about what they want out of work and out of life. I don't particularly want to be a slave to my business, but I would like business to work for me. And with a lot of hard work and a lot of hours, I'm starting to see that. But that's only because I've got a really, really great team behind me that do a lot of the heavy lifting, and I trust them implicitly.
So basically, if you want a vacation, you'll just find Darren. He can get you a free vacation as well. He'll be giving it out with the free meals today.
With cooking lessons as well, absolutely. With
cooking lessons. Hey, speaking of cooking lessons, before I hand over to Nadia, I promise the last thing. If you were to eat, each one of you, if you were to eat one food in Africa, answer this carefully. And Kenyans, you can be honest, because I know Kenyan food isn't always the best. So you're going to be honest on this one. But if you were to eat one food for the rest of the year, African food, what would you pick?
That's easy for me. I'm not going to say it right, and I know I'm going to get slated by you, my fellow Kenyan friends, but Naoma Choma, that's my favorite.
Mine is obvious: plantains. Every day, any day.
I would do, and it's coming over and over again because of nyama choma, mokimo. Mokimo is like when you smash your potatoes. I'm a potato lover because it's such a resilient, plant or potato. So mokimo is like heaven. So any day, mokimo any day with nyama choma, with plantain. I can do anything. It's a resilient dish. So that's what I would do.
I mean, as long as you didn't say githeri, like, we're good.
Get traumatized.
Well, Darren, Jessica, and Harriet, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really, really appreciate it. We've also posted your contact details. Please find them and their websites on the chat here if you want to continue the conversation with them. We really appreciate your time over here.